In a hushed cemetery, a little girl leaned over her father's coffin for one final embrace. As she murmured her farewell, an event so astonishing unfolded that the entire gathering shrieked in disbelief. What did this grieving child do, and what transpired that left everyone utterly stunned? Stay tuned, this tale is about to take an unexpected turn. Also, let us know where you're tuning in from, and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. At daybreak in the lively city of Accra, Ghana, Cojo Owusu arrived at a bustling construction site. His hands bore the marks of hard labor, his back ached, yet his determination remained unyielding. Born into poverty, Cojo had long fought to break the chains that had bound his family for generations. His parents, who once dreamed of a brighter future, had met their fate when Cojo was still a boy, leaving him to navigate life on his own. Cojo juggled several jobs to keep the bills paid, laboring in construction during the day and working factory shifts at night. However, his heart truly belonged to his side hustle, selling waki, the aromatic rice and beans dish he prepared on a humble street corner. It was on one busy day, beneath the scorching sun, that he first noticed her, Ajoa Botang. With her deep brown eyes that shone as she smiled, Ajoa's graceful presence stood out in the crowd. Day after day, Ajoa began appearing at the same time as if by fate, her footsteps light as she approached Cojo's modest food stall. Always anticipating her arrival, Cojo reserved a portion of his waki for her. Initially, they exchanged shy smiles and courteous greetings, but over time their brief interactions blossomed into deeper conversations. Ajoa's kindness and infectious laughter became a beacon in Cojo's challenging life. One day, under gathering storm clouds, Cojo saw Ajoa hurrying towards his stall. Just as he finished serving his last customer, torrential rain poured down, forcing him to hurriedly pack up before the weather ruined his cooking equipment. To his delight, Ajoa rushed over to lend a hand. They laughed together amidst the chaos, drenched and out of breath. Taking refuge under an old bus stop, Cojo finally bared his heart. "Ajoa," he began, his voice trembling. "I know we haven't known each other long, but I can't stop thinking about you." Ajoa's eyes widened, and with a gentle smile she replied, "What took you so long to say it? I've been waiting." Cojo marveled at how drastically his life had transformed since Ajoa's arrival. What had started as cautious exchanges over waki had grown into a bond he never imagined possible. Each morning, before Accra was bathed in golden sunlight, Cojo would awake to find Ajoa already bustling in their small kitchen, kneading dough and mixing spices. The inviting aroma of freshly cooked waki filled their humble home, carrying the promise of brighter days ahead. Ajoa's natural business acumen soon shone through. She introduced new recipes, experimented with diverse flavors, and charmed every customer with her warm smile and engaging chatter. Before long, people didn't just come for Cojo's renowned waki. They visited specifically to see Ajoa's radiant presence and enjoy the welcoming atmosphere at their little stall. Rumors spread throughout Accra's neighborhoods. If you're after the best waki in town, head over to Cojo and Ajoa's stall. As new customers flocked in, Cojo's earnings began to rise steadily. Ajoa often urged him to save a portion of their income. "We could one day open our own shop," she would say, her eyes gleaming with hope. At first, Cojo dismissed the idea with a laugh, but as their savings grew, so did their dreams. On one especially busy afternoon, after serving a long line of office workers, Cojo's phone rang with an unfamiliar number. Hesitant at first, he eventually answered, prompted playfully by Ajoa's teasing, "What if it's someone important?" On the other end was Mr. Botang, a representative from a major telecommunications company in Accra. "I've heard about your famous waki," he said enthusiastically. "We're hosting a conference next week, and we would be honored if you could cater the event." Cojo was momentarily speechless. It felt like a dream, a golden opportunity to serve a major corporation. Yet it was Ajoa's optimism that prevailed as she accepted the challenge without a moment's hesitation. "We can do this, Cojo," she encouraged, squeezing his hand. "This is our chance." The following week turned into a frenzy of preparation. Together, they purchased ingredients in bulk, experimented with recipes, and rehearsed their presentation. When the day of the conference arrived, the couple, exhausted yet resolute, put forth their best effort. As the guests sampled Cojo's waki, the room filled with murmurs of delight and satisfied smiles. Their catering success opened doors they had never imagined. Orders began to pour in from various companies and individuals. In no time, Cojo's modest street cart was transformed into a cozy shop nestled in one of Accra's vibrant markets. Painted a cheerful shade of yellow to symbolize their bright future, the shop proudly displayed a sign, Cojo and Ajoa's Kitchen, home of the best walkie in town. As their business flourished, Cojo and Ajoa also found time to nurture their relationship. They strolled hand in hand along the beach after long days, with the gentle crash of waves as their backdrop. Sundays became their sacred day to explore Accra's lively streets, enjoying fried plantains and chilled coconut water. Less than a year after their initial meeting, the couple decided to deepen their commitment. Cojo proposed during an evening walk along the beach, under a sky studded with stars. Tears glistened in Ajoa's eyes as she softly whispered, "Yes, 1,000 times, yes." 4 months later, in an intimate ceremony attended by close family and friends, they were married. Ajoa, in a simple yet elegant white dress, walked down the aisle, and Cojo couldn't help but smile as he watched her. "You're my miracle," he murmured during their vows. Life seemed perfect. They owned a thriving business, a cozy home, and most importantly, they had each other. Yet beneath their shared laughter and dreams, a quiet longing persisted, one that neither voiced but both felt deeply. Over time, Cojo and Ajoa dreamed of filling their home with the laughter of children. They explored every possible avenue, doctor visits, herbal treatments, and countless prayers. Each time Ajoa saw children playing outside, her heart ached. Though she smiled and waved at them, a deep-seated sorrow resided within. Cojo, ever hopeful, would hold her close at night and say, "It will happen when it's meant to." He tried to hide his own disappointment, though Ajoa could see it in his eyes. Gradually, the lively chatter in their once cheerful kitchen gave way to hushed discussions as both tiptoed around the painful topic. One evening, as they sat on their shop's porch after closing, Ajoa finally broke down in tears. "What if it never happens for us, Cojo?" she sobbed. Cojo pulled her into an embrace, gently wiping away her tears. "No matter what, we have each other, and that is more than enough." Yet, even as he comforted her, they clung to the hope of someday hearing the pitter-patter of tiny feet in their home. Then, fate intervened in an extraordinary way. 2 years after their wedding, when hope seemed nearly lost, Ajoa discovered she was pregnant. Overwhelmed with joy, Cojo shed tears as he held her hand in the small clinic upon hearing the news. 9 months later, they welcomed a beautiful baby girl, Aena, who inherited Ajoa's gentle eyes and Cojo's strong brows. Aena was no ordinary child. By the age of 3, she was already reading books and solving simple math puzzles. Cojo and Ajoa marveled at her curiosity, nurturing it as they spent evenings playing games and sharing stories under the starlit sky of Accra. Happiness, however, proved to be heartbreakingly fragile. Abena's 5th birthday had been a day of pure joy. Their living room was festively decorated with vibrant balloons, and the aroma of Ajoa's renowned jollof rice filled the air. Gathered around the coffee table, Cojo, Ajoa, and Aena played her favorite board game. Laughter echoed as Cojo, playfully allowing Aena to win, watched her squeal with delight. But in a sudden moment, everything changed. As Cojo leaned back to share another laugh, his smile froze. His eyes widened, rolling back as his body went limp. A heavy thud as he collapsed echoed throughout the room, and Ajoa's cry of "Cojo" filled the air as she rushed to him. Aena, bewildered and scared, watched as her mother desperately tried to rouse him. Time seemed to stretch indefinitely, until Cojo's eyes fluttered open. Gasping, he tried to dismiss the incident with a weak, "I'm fine," while gently wiping away Ajoa's tears. Yet the fear in her eyes told a different story, a realization that this was not merely exhaustion. The following days were charged with an unspoken tension. Ajoa vigilantly watched over him, searching for any sign of weakness. Then, a week later, while Cojo was preparing breakfast, the collapse recurred, this time with greater force. The clatter of a frying pan hitting the floor sent Ajoa racing from the next room. There was no longer room for reassurances or dismissals. "We're going to the hospital," she declared, her voice trembling with fear, and Cojo, seeing the desperation in her eyes, reluctantly agreed. The hospital, with its sterile, cold atmosphere, stood in stark contrast to the warmth of their home. Ajoa clutched Cojo's hand as they sat in the waiting room, their fingers intertwined in silent anxiety. Hours later, following a battery of tests, the doctor ushered them into his office. "I'm afraid it's serious," he said gravely. "Cojo, you have a rare condition. It's terminal. The words swirled around them as Ajoa's world shattered. Phrases like months to live and palliative care echoed, but her thoughts fixed solely on Aena. How could they possibly explain to their little girl that her father was dying? Together, Cojo and Ajoa decided to shield Aena from the harsh truth. "Papa is just tired," Ajoa would say, whenever Aena inquired about his pallor or frequent need for rest. Yet Aena, with her perceptiveness, sensed the change, the lingering tension that now pervaded their once joyful home. During a hospital visit, Aena climbed onto her father's bed, taking his frail hand in her tiny one. "Papa," she whispered softly, "are you going to leave us?" Kojo's heart broke as he met her wide, innocent eyes. For a moment, he thought about concealing the truth, but then he recognized the strength within his daughter. With tears in his eyes, he slowly nodded. "Yes, my darling," he replied, his voice choked with emotion. "Papa is sick, and one day I will have to leave. But remember," he added, placing her small hand over his heart, "I will always be with you, right here." Aena nodded, her bottom lip trembling, yet she didn't cry. Instead, she leaned forward and softly kissed his cheek. "I'll keep you in my heart forever, Papa," she promised. In the days that followed, Aena displayed a resilience that amazed both Cojo and Ajoa. Though only 5, she seemed to grasp the gravity of the situation, sitting quietly by her father's side, reading her little storybooks to him, or simply resting her head on his shoulder. Meanwhile, Ajoa oscillated between stoic strength and quiet despair, determined to hide her pain from Aena even as her heart ached with sorrow. In the quiet moments shared just between Cojo and Aena, there was a deep sense of peace. Each tick of the clock reminded Cojo of the time slipping away, yet every second with his daughter was treasured. For Aena, each day spent with her father turned into a precious memory. As Kojo's health rapidly declined, Aena became his little guardian angel, spending countless hours at his bedside, determined not to let tears fall in front of him. On the night before his final departure, Aena remained by his side, their hands clasped as they silently said goodbye. The next morning, Cojo passed away peacefully in his sleep. Ajoa was inconsolable, haunted by regret for not having spent more time with him in those final moments. At the funeral, while the crowd wept, Aena stood silently, her face composed in sorrow. When it came time to lower Cojo's coffin into the ground, Aena turned to her mother and asked, "Can I hug Papa one last time?" Although hesitant, Ajoa nodded. Aena climbed into the coffin and wrapped her small arms around her father. The funeral day dawned under a gray sky, heavy clouds looming over the cemetery in Accra. The atmosphere was thick with grief, punctuated by soft sobs and murmured condolences. Standing at the edge of the grave, Ajoa's tears streaked her face as she fixated on the simple wooden coffin that cradled her beloved Cojo. Beside her, Aena, clad in a small black dress and clutching a folded letter, appeared calm beyond her years. The letter, filled with heartfelt words beyond her tender understanding, was her final gift to him. As the pastor delivered the closing words signaling it was time to lower the coffin, Aena tugged at Ajoa's sleeve and whispered, "Mama, please let me say goodbye." With a heavy heart, Ajoa consented. Aena ascended the small wooden platform beside the coffin, leaned over, and embraced her father's still form. "I love you, Papa," she murmured, her warm breath brushing against his cold cheek. She gently placed the letter inside the coffin and pressed a tender kiss to his forehead. As she withdrew, tears streamed down her face, yet her expression remained serenely composed. Stepping back, a sudden gust of wind swept through the cemetery, rustling the leaves of the nearby trees. In that breathtaking moment, a flutter of wings filled the air. The gathered mourners gasped and stepped back in shock as a pure white dove descended from the sky, its feathers glowing softly against the gray backdrop. The bird glided gracefully above the crowd before landing gently on Cojo's chest. For a brief moment, the cemetery fell into an almost sacred silence, as if time itself had paused. The dove tilted its head, its dark eyes fixed on Aena, and took a few delicate steps forward before softly pecking her cheek, almost like a gentle kiss. In that instant, the heavy sorrow seemed to lift, replaced by an unspoken feeling of peace and love. Ajoa, still in disbelief, momentarily forgot her tears as she watched the scene unfold. The adults exchanged hushed remarks, some making the sign of the cross, others silently wiping away tears. To many, the sudden appearance of the dove felt nothing short of a miracle, an undeniable sign from beyond. Yet with the innocent wisdom of a child, Aena simply smiled and said, "Papa sent him. He wants us to know that he's happy and at peace." Though Ajoa's heart clenched with fresh sorrow, a flicker of hope ignited within her. Perhaps, she thought, Cojo was truly watching over them. Years passed, and life gently carried Aena and Ajoa forward, though the memory of Cojo never faded. Aena grew into a strong, wise woman, embodying her father's resilience and kindness. She pursued her dreams, built a fulfilling life, and eventually became a parent herself. On quiet evenings, Aena would gather her children and grandchildren in her warm living room, where laughter filled the air just as it once had in her childhood home. And every so often they would ask her to recount the tale of their great-grandfather and the miraculous dove. Seated by the gentle glow of the fire, Aena would softly smile and begin, "Your great-grandfather was the most loving man. When I was your age, he fell gravely ill, yet he never ceased to love us. Even after he left this world, he found a way to tell me he would always be with us." The children listened, eyes wide with wonder, as she recounted the day the dove appeared at his funeral. "That dove was Papa's message, a reminder that love never dies," she explained, her voice thick with emotion. "Even when someone dear to us is gone, they live on in our hearts." One of her grandchildren would ask, "Do you really believe it was him, Grandma?" With a tender smile, Aena would reply, "Yes, because love is the most powerful magic of all." And on those evenings, a white dove would often appear, quietly perched on the windowsill outside, as though it were listening to the story. Aena would smile knowingly, a silent message bridging the past and the present, proof that some bonds can never be broken. As Aena concluded her tale, her grandchildren would inquire once more, "Do you think it was really him, Grandma?" With eyes glistening, she would whisper, "Yes, love like that never dies. It simply finds new ways to show itself." And as they embraced her, a dove perched on the window outside, softly cooing as if to say, "I'm still here." Thus, Aena carried the memory of that miraculous moment for the rest of her life, believing that the dove was her father's final message of enduring love. But what do you believe truly happened that day? Was it a sign from beyond, or merely a coincidental act? If you found yourself in Aena's shoes, would you see it as a message from your father? How would such a sign reshape your view of the world? We'd love to hear your thoughts. Do you believe in signs, or is it simply the innocent imagination of a child at play? Thank you for listening, and until next time, hold your loved ones close.